I'm Ainsley McLeod, and this is my Pioneer and Superstar presentation. I'm going to start by talking about my pioneer, her story, and the fight for gender equality. I'm then going to move on to my interviewee and how some of the ideas that she brought up relate back to Dare to Compete. I'm then going to talk about my superstar and what is seen as the biggest problem in women's sports today. And then I'm going to wrap it all up together. My pioneer is Bethany Hamilton. She's a pro-American surfer who started surfing at the age of 8. She's an 8-time gold medalist and defies the odds. I chose Bethany because she returned to surfing 1 month after losing her left arm to a tiger shark at the age of 13. She's motivated by her faith in God as her backbone to continue to push through each obstacle that is thrown her way. She was recently inducted into the Surfers Hall of Fame in 2017. I have a short clip that I want you guys to watch.
Take the opportunity to have a look back on what's unfolded in this heat so far. It started early for Tyler Wright, a 7.33 on this wave.
Well, it's hard to say that Tyler's made any serious mistakes in his heat, but she's definitely kept her momentum raging down the line. And that's kind of cut her maneuvers just a little short. But you look at the scores, 7.3, 7.5, and I think the judges really liked the fact that Tyler was flying down the line with speed and throwing a bit of spray out the back and finishing her ride. So no real mistakes from Tyler, but she did leave the door open by surfing a little bit more on a conservative side. Now for Bethany, we were thinking, Ronnie, she's just way too focused on getting barreled. But the good news for her, as soon as she did get on the open face, she looked tack sharp. And, that 9-point ride that she just got, I really do believe that it was mostly gained from those turns. The barrel was sweet, but the turns were heavy. She threw a lot of spray, and for sure that's what, allowed the judges to go that high.
Well, two competitors that aren't afraid to take these rides right through to the inside, risking losing a bit of bark on that shallow inside section. And Bethany, this is her best wave, the best wave of the heat so far, and a lot of points coming from this move.
Yeah, serious spray right there, a lot of speed, great whip through it, and she doesn't just kind of cut it short, she really finishes her turns. And that, really allows the judges to kind of bring that score up into the way above that excellent range.
Bethany Hamilton did end up winning against Tyler Wright. She was knocked out later on as she took second place. Bethany relates back to the article Women in the Olympic Movement because until recent years, men had more opportunities to compete, and they were also being paid significantly more than women who were in competitions. While women have been surfing since 1959, it was not until the 1990s that women were seen competing against their male counterparts. In many athletic events, men and women were actually not able to compete against each other due to different regulations and rules. While there were competitions being offered for both men and women, the men were allowed to compete in 64 while women were only offered 44 competitions. The unfair offering for men and women in the world of the surf competition relates back to the Women in the Olympic Movement because the 1990 Olympic Games only saw 2 events being offered for women only. With the creation of Title IX in 1972, the gender equality rules were changed so that women were able to have more of a freedom to participate in the athletic offerings that they prefer. As time has gone on, women have been allowed to compete in almost 50% of the Olympic events. For Hamilton and other female surfers, their list of competitions has grown to being almost as equivalent to their male counterparts. And the World Surf League has also just recently announced that all their competitors will be paid an equal amount. I chose to interview my mom for this project. Her name is Nadine McLeod. She has past experience as being a coach, a ref, an athlete, and a mom to an athlete. She has a significant role not only in my own career, but also in others as well. While talking with my mom, it was interesting to learn more about how different athletics were before I was born or involved in them. I asked McLeod a total of 8 questions to gather information on how athletics has changed as she went from being an athlete to a ref, then a coach, and then to the parent of an athlete. I asked Nadine about her past sports. She told me that she's been involved in sports since the 5th grade, and she started playing softball for her hometown, which was her first choice. Then she played basketball all because her friends were playing. She then tried cheerleading for 1 season, and then decided that wasn't her thing, so she went to try volleyball. she decided that she loved volleyball and has been playing from high school till now. She also coaches during the summer and decided to even ref. She only ref for one season, but I'll talk more about that later. As I said, she decided to play these sports because A, her friends played. She was very athletic, and she still is today, and they also all kept her busy. When talking to my mom, I decided to ask her about how the sport of volleyball has changed. She said that it's changed in many ways, one of the biggest being how it's scored. Until 1999, the only way to get a point was on the serve or if the serving team won the rally. In 1989, games were renamed sets, and each set was played to 25 points. 1989 also saw the introduction of the libero, who is the defensive specialist, who would most commonly be known as the best passer on the court. Rally scoring wasn't debuted until 2001, and that's how they score games now. I decided to ask my mom what her one wish would be that she could change, if she could change anything about how she played. She said that her one wish is that she sought out a higher level of coaching. Due to numerous circumstances, she didn't go to college, and she wishes that she had, because she wanted to be able to gain a higher level of coaching, play, and a greater opportunity to stay involved more steadily in playing. When it comes to gender discrimination, I talked to her about her athletic experience as a whole. She said that she didn't have any during her time as an athlete. However, she did during her time as a referee, which in turn influenced how long she decided to stay. While chatting with Nadine, she mentioned how often she thought about the differences in publicity for male athletes compared to the lack of publicity that women have received. And I quote, "I do feel like boys' sports have always been more in your face, and there's more hype to them. I think girls' sports have come a long way, certainly if you look at the progression of the sports that have been added to the Olympics, and even at the women's soccer team, but there's still more room for improvement." My mom has been coaching at a camp out in New York for the past 5 years, so I decided to ask her what advice she would give to an athlete who's either just beginning to play or has been playing but has been having a hard time staying motivated. My mom said that she would encourage girls especially to pursue the sport that they have a true interest in, and, if they have a true ability, to not hold back their skill. She's going off of personal experience with this piece of advice. Because she's only 5 feet tall, she just let her height dictate how she played when she was in high school. Looking back, Nadine wishes that she had utilized her ability to jump so that she could block and even get a few swings in, instead of just sticking with their given position of setter. And I quote, "If you're willing to work hard, have a good attitude, and be coachable, I think you can do whatever you want to do. Granted, not everyone is going to be good at everything, so you might go into something saying, I've tried and worked really, really hard. Maybe this one isn't my sport. But don't let that deter you from pursuing it and giving it your best and seeking opportunities to get better, learn, be taught, and coached. Also, be humble and be a team player, because you'll never fully understand how much that dictates everything." I personally have been involved in sports since I was 5 years old, so my mom has been my go-to sideline coach for many years. Due to my parents' choice to homeschool my siblings and I did not have a traditional high school background. However, I was able to become in sports at Minnetonka Regional High School in the town of Wilbraham, Massachusetts. That being said, because I'm not a traditional student, this volleyball coach did not treat me as a true athlete on his team. So when I asked my mom what the hardest thing was that she witnessed as a parent, she replied, "Unfair judgment." Or unfair, yeah, that's hard. I feel like politics play a huge part in sports today, and I know that you can't get away from it. I know that all coaches will have their favorites on a team, but in order to be a good coach, I think that you need to be able to lay aside those biases as best as you can and think about the betterment of the team and for the betterment of your players. But as a parent to an athlete, just seeing how coaches really hold a lot of power and they hold a lot of influence over the players, so to be witness to the coaches who don't value their players, especially females, was the hardest thing to watch, especially when paired with a lack of coaching, encouragement, integrity, and how that affects you as my daughter and how it affects the team as a whole. Dare to Compete highlights some interesting takes on the differences between men and women and how those differences play a part in the offerings of athletics for the genders. One of the ideas is that men get to compete in more athletic events because the women get tired faster and can't hold their own against men. I think that's completely untrue, and I'm very glad that opinion has changed in some ways recently. Bethany Hamilton also experienced that in some aspects of sports, seeing that when she was first beginning to surf, females were only offered less than 20 opportunities to compete while the men were given close to 50, and there was absolutely no competing against the men in the sport of surf. My mom also discussed the ideas of how oftentimes men and women are not viewed as equals, especially when it comes to athletics, specifically in publicity, but I will talk more about that later. My superstar is Michelle Barch-Hackley. She's an American pro volleyball player, was ranked as MVP in the National Women's Volleyball League in 2018. I picked Michelle because she's determined. When she first tried out for the national team, she was told that she was too old to play, but she was so stubborn and had great skill that she continued to go back to practices and try out. So the head coach decided that she had to take her on the team. Although Barch-Hackley did not experience gender discrimination, she was told that she was too old to play, which is considered ageism, even though she was only 1 year older than the women who have more recently become her teammates. I found this article posted on The Guardian truly interesting. It made me think of my own personal experience as a collegiate athlete. Publicity for male athletic events is everywhere you look, whereas women have to push hard to get their events listed even at the lowest level. Male events are publicized more because they are considered as more intriguing than a female's event would be. My mom even discussed how different publicity is for the genders, but there are also times where females have more fans in their stands than their male counterparts do. This is even true for here at Westfield State University. Our volleyball games were announced the day of, whereas men's football or hockey games got posted or announced, or both, 2 or 3 days before. However, I have noticed that recently in this season has brought more information for women's athletic events to be bringing in greater crowds. The Guardian discusses how oftentimes the USA women's soccer team had an equal, if not greater, amount of fans in the stadium as the men's team did, but they still did not receive equal amount of publishment or pay. Equality in promotion is where everyone should be starting for women's athletics. Once that issue is addressed, everything else can fall into place. My pioneer, superstar, and interviewee have all witnessed unfair treatment for being a woman in one way or another. For Hamilton, it was the unequal pay from the National Surf League, which has thankfully changed. For Barch-Hackley, it was being told that she was too old to be on the national team, even though the men's team would allow men older than her now to join their team. And for my mom, it was during her time as a referee. She was always considered as the last option when a game was posted that someone would need a ref.